Just a quick update on the conflict in Ukraine. I'm focusing on the Zaporizhzhia area. This is the key area where we need to keep um, our eyes focused. And the purpose is that Zaporizhzhia is a key city of 1 million people. It is very hard to defend the city because it's, as some people say, it's on the wrong side of the river. So if it was on the other side of the river, of the Dnieper, it would be much more difficult to defend. As it is almost within touching distance of the Russian troops. So to slow down the Russian troops, the Ukrainians entered into a offensive. You can see Andriivka to Veliko-Mikhailivka, or Turnovate to Andriivka. That this area, they decided that they were going to create an offensive. You can imagine that the United States is providing Ukraine with a lot of intelligence information. They're gathering this intelligence from the satellite information, from flyovers, from all sorts of sources, and they're helping to point out to the Ukrainians where the weak points are in the Russian line. So this map is calibrated. I believe that the Ukrainians have advanced quite significantly towards Uspenivka and Novosilivka. So the point here was for the Ukrainians to enter into this area and to force the Russians to retreat from what would be Uliapole, and pull back to more defensible positions. But now with Zaporizhzhia being so close, here's Zaporizhzhia. With Zaporizhzhia being so close, Russia is not going to let go of this objective. So they clearly have Zaporizhzhia as a key goal for this year. Otherwise, they may have pulled back. You can see that of the Russian advances along the full front line, these are some of the most notable advances. So Russia is pouring their forces and resources into this area, and the first goals is to take the city of Orikhiv. So first they need to get to Tokmachka and head towards Novopavlivka, which is above Orikhiv, and to cut off the supply line to Orikhiv, and thereby closing out this last key fortified city, which is keeping the Russians quite a distance away. So you can see also from this viewpoint that Russia is focusing on moving towards Lyubimivka and Odarivka, Zarichne. So basically, once they get close to close to those towns, then with drones, they can control the entire road. And so this is the key goal for the Russians. And so first, of course, they need to advance westward, which they are doing. You can see they are no longer even close to Guliapole. They have advanced quite a bit from that city, and now they are advancing little by little until they will put Orikhiv in a cauldron, and they will be able to cut off the supply line and then once Orikhiv is cut off, then they can start advancing westward across the entire front, and they will focus on removing the Ukrainian forces that have advanced north of Uspenivka. So many people some months ago couldn't have thought that the Ukrainians were able to carry out this counteroffensive, and I'm not too sure if this was related to the Starlink terminals, or rotations, or just poor conditions. But anyway, the Russians have always prioritized their firepower over their offensive capability, which thereby reduces their losses. So, and Ukraine continues to mobilize individuals in the towns, and so they're sent as forward advanced forces, but without a lot of training. So eventually they will run into trouble. So I don't think the Russians are too worried about this advance from Ukraine. And again, it's not really visible on this map. But the important thing is to focus on is the Russian advances, how they're going to close out this line. So you see over here in Primorsk, they were able to advance towards Rechne, which means that they are closing out this area of the Konka River, and so they will start moving towards Veselianka. I believe they've already attacked the bridge coming over, so you can see that the Russians are focused on taking this whole empty area, which I'm sure has Ukrainians defending. So probably lightly, because the exit routes will now be pretty much unavailable, with the rivers now thawing and flowing normally. So it'll be much more difficult to get forces to come over at nighttime over a frozen river. And so this is a key area. And of course, if Russia is able to get close to Zaporizhzhia and begin to create a to be able to surround the city, then you'll see what happened in Pokrovsk, where they enter the city, they test the defenses, they check out the defenses, and they retreat, and then they go in again, they retreat. So anyway, the fact that they could get close to Zaporizhzhia doesn't mean that they are close to taking the city, but this is the goal, and I don't think that the Ukrainian offensive north of Uspenivka is going to impede that advance, and so this is the key area. I think there's also key areas throughout the rest of the front line, but getting to Zaporizhzhia is a primary goal of the Russian forces, and they will continue to push along in that direction. So anyway, just a brief video about the Zaporizhzhia front, how things are looking. Of course, the Ukrainians were also counterattacking in Primorsk. They were counterattacking in the area of Pavlivka, and so they Mali Sherbaki. So they've been pushing back along the whole front line, but they but Russia was able to maintain its lines, and now it's advancing. So, and the worst thing about this area for the Ukrainians is that Russia is also advancing into Konstantinovka and is going to be approaching Slovyansk. And Slovyansk is right now more important than Zaporizhzhia. The Russians are still quite a distance from Zaporizhzhia, but depending on where you measure the Russians' distance to Slovyansk, they're either 14 kilometers away or 6 kilometers away. In some areas, they are quite close. That is in the area of Liman, or Lyman, as some say. So they have diverted forces over to slow the Russians down as they advance towards Slovyansk, and that will pull forces away from this area. So we could see some advances now that we get into the period after the thaw and the mud hardens and the ground is able to withstand tanks and trucks and all sorts of military equipment. So now you will see more of a push in this area from the Russians. So I can't give any predictions or timelines. This is very much a back and forth operation, and the Ukrainians still have quite a bit of capability to slow the Russians down in different areas, and even to have an offensive, which they did north of Uspenivka. But now, as Russia begins to approach Zaporizhzhia and Slovyansk, you will see that they will focus away from these long defensive lines and towards trying to stop Russia from taking these cities. And you can say, well, maybe before they get to Zaporizhzhia, there will be a negotiated settlement. I don't think that the Russians right now are interested in any negotiated settlement. We're seeing quite an escalation of attacks on energy facilities on both sides. There was an attack on a hospital in Donetsk. I think the Russians are very close to declaring the Ukrainian state as a terrorist state, and so when that happens, then there will be no negotiating at all with Ukraine to end this conflict. Only after the possibility of an election would there be a possibility of finding a new government which could possibly unite the Ukrainians towards finding a negotiated settlement agreeable both to Russia and Ukraine. So anyway, this concludes this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you back for the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.